Well, welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. Again, my name is Chris Allen, and I'm the host of our show today. And we have another great episode for you. We've really strategically named this show Managing and Motivating Remotely. I know that in many of my clients and across the country, people that I'm talking to, leaders are trying to figure out, how do you manage people in this remote work environment? Hey, we're hybrid now. We're sometimes in the office, sometimes out. How do I keep a team motivated around our strategy for this year? As many teams are putting the strategy in place this year and doing planning, these leaders are trying to figure out, how am I going to keep these people engaged and collaborating and meeting the deadlines and necessary metrics to keep this organization moving forward? We thought it would be a great opportunity to do an entire show on this topic and to invite a guest that has experience managing a remote team. Dave Gilbertson, I actually have just recently met, but this guy is a serial entrepreneur. So many different opportunities. But the one that's most intriguing, the one that we want to key in on today, is the fact that he, as a leader, is managing a team from a distance. And so we're going to get into some specifics and some practical insights today. I am excited for you to hear a little bit more about his story. We never quite know where the conversation is going to go, but would you, our guest, help me welcome Dave Gilbertson to the show? Dave.
Hi,
so
Chris. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So for our guest, again, we're live, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. But for the guest of this show, I think it's important that they know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
You're coming live from Southern California.
Yes, sir.
And I think it would just be interesting if you took just a few minutes to share a little bit more about your story and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a Midwestern guy at heart. I grew up in Wisconsin. I had a few too many cold winters and decided that it was time to get out. I ended up leaving when I was 17. I went off to college in Arizona, and then I went off to college in London, and then I came back and was kind of trying to figure out my way, my path, if that's what you want to call it. And I ended up out here in Southern California, had a really good group of people that I looked up to and listened to and took advice from. And through that, I was introduced to, I guess, my network of connections. And I always, as I like to say, have my antennas up. So if I hear of an opportunity and I believe that it's going to be a good one, I try to chase after it. And that's really what got me into the path of entrepreneurship. And one thing is, they say, always leads to another. So where I started out is definitely not where I've ended up so far. But it's been a fun journey and an interesting journey, and you learn a lot.
So, Dave, when we talked briefly, I had said, so Dave, if someone walks up to you and they say, "Oh, hey, Dave, great to meet you. What do you do?" You had this great answer. I'd love for you to share that with our guests. Hey,
Yeah,
Dave,
absolutely.
what do you do?
I change lives. And, whether that's through the health and the fitness or the self-defense side, or, your company needs a few $100 million and we have to go find it for you, some way, shape, or form, we're here to change your life.
Okay. So now our guest realized why I've invited Dave Gilbertson to the Always About People show. Yeah. He's always about changing lives. And Dave, you went through it really quickly, but people can look up your profile later. But you're involved in the fitness world.
Yes.
You're involved with a wood company.
Yes.
You're involved in the investing finance world.
Yes.
You are an accomplished author.
Yes.
And you are in the self-defense business. And so,
yes.
and so there's many people who are watching right now going, what?
Right.
Like, how is this possible? What do you say to people who look at you with those weird eyes when you say, these are all the things that I do?
And I say, how isn't it possible? Right. I think if you really took a look at any one of our individual work days, myself included, by the way, there's probably some dead time in there where I'm scrolling through social media, or I'm checking an email a few too many times. And over the years, I've just tried to say, okay, and instead of that wasted time, how can I make that productive time? And I found that as long as I'm doing something fun, and as long as at the end of that day I can say I'm helping change someone's life, it gives me the motivation to keep moving forward. So I don't think it's about not having enough time. It's just about prioritizing our time properly. And when you're involved with people and everything that we do, every business that I do, it's real easy to be in a fitness area and say, someone I heard someone say, their business is trying to refinance something. So we go, oh, all right, here, I can put you in touch with this guy. Or in the wood business, hey, there's a new resort being put up. We think they're going to need some interior stuff. And I go, hey, got that company for you too. So it's fun, as I was saying, and it's easy once you start doing it, once it becomes habit.
Okay, so I think I want to highlight something for those who are watching, and that is that all of these opportunities have come about from relationships,
Yes, sir.
from people that you've known, you've heard maybe a problem, and you've figured out a solution. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct.
So it's always about people.
Always.
That was a pretty good unintentional plug.
It's a great plug. It's what makes us who we are. It's what gives us our opportunities. And we put at all of our companies, we put the people first, and we do believe in people over profits. And with that said, we're not dumb. We understand that we need profits in order to grow, and quite honestly, to hire more people or to change more lives. And so we like listening, we like hearing. It doesn't mean that we can do everything perfectly, but we always strive to be better and better, and make sure that they're happy too.
All right, Dave, let's go to one of your companies, Coeur d'Alene Wood.
Yes, sir.
And you're in Southern California.
Yeah.
You've got a manufacturing location in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Yes.
You've got a team of people up there that you are managing from hundreds of miles away.
Correct.
I think that this is one of the biggest questions that leaders are asking today. In this remote environment, when I can't walk down the hallway and peer over somebody's shoulder or see them in their seat, how do I actually manage and motivate them? And I'd love to just get deeper into this conversation and leave people, our listeners and our viewers, with some practical insights. So I guess maybe let me back up and just say, how do you feel about managing a team from hundreds of miles away?
Yeah, it's a good question. And let's just say I didn't start out doing that. I'm going to revert back to kind of the self-defense and fitness industry. And when you get into licensing programs or helping people thousands of miles away or in other countries, you have to learn to lead from afar. Then you have to be willing to wake up at inopportune times. It's 1 a.m. here, but it's 8 a.m. across the world. And we try to focus on the old adage of what is their why. And if we can figure out what their why is, why are they getting up in the morning? Why are they doing what they're doing? And we can keep refocusing back on that. You're going to have an engaged audience. You're going to have engaged employees. You're going to have engaged upper management, and you're going to have an engaged board, right? Why are you in this? Why are you doing what you're doing? And if we really can get down to those finer points, the rest flows pretty simply.
Okay, let's help leaders with some practical ways of getting to this why. How do you actually find out what people's why is?
Yeah, listen and ask. So if I see that there's some disruptions going on in any one of the businesses, and maybe there's a lack of performance or a lack of motivation, or I like asking them, why did we start this anywhere? Quite honestly, what's going wrong? And we like to blame ourselves first. Was our training not proper? Did I not give you all the tools that you need to succeed? And most of the time, that's actually it, right? Most of the time, I can take that blame and go, you know what? You're right. I expected you to make a decision, yet you didn't have all of the variables possible. We in our position did or do. They simply can't, right? And so why are you doing this, along with what am I doing wrong, helps me figure out a plan on how to better structure my business, how to better optimize systems so that we can give them the chance to succeed. Now, as we all know, there's bad apples on every side of the tree, and it doesn't always work. But 9 times out of 10, if we give them the tools necessary, the training necessary, managing from afar isn't too bad.
Okay, how often should I be asking employees or team members or colleagues, how often should I be asking them these questions?
Yeah, that's a great question. As often as you feel you need to, right? If you and I are having just a normal conversation back and forth, and I ask you every minute and a half, what is your why? You're probably going to figure out that I don't really care. But if I'm truly and I'm genuine, and you and I are talking, and you say, I'm just not hitting my numbers. I'm just not, and I try to get to the bottom of that in a real genuine way, because I really want to help you, because I know in return, you're going to be a better individual for that. The company's going to grow, all these, intrinsic things that go on. You are more likely to respond. And you're more likely to respond in a truthful manner. If I say, well, what's your why? And you say, well, money. Maybe, but I don't believe that is the bottom of the why, right? We need to dig a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah. So Dave, on previous shows, one of my passions is talking about people's motivation and
Yeah.
the hierarchy of needs. And
Yes.
we know that the direct motives or the intrinsic motives of enjoyment of my work, a deep purpose in my work, and the potential for growth is actually what defines people's why. Now, they might say some form of emotional pressure or economic pressure like pay, or
Yes.
some people don't even know why they do what they do. But
Absolutely.
but those motives are really important. And so I am completely in agreement and affirm everything you're saying. I think what's difficult for some leaders is they go, I don't have time to engage in these conversations with every employee.
Mhm.
I'm crazy busy. What would you say to
Mhm.
that leader?
What's your why?
I think that's an awesome response. Yeah.
Right, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And with that said, obviously there are, all of us get extremely busy, and I like to ask myself, is we get down on ourselves. We go, how in the world? I don't have enough time to ask every employee, how they're feeling today. And maybe that's true right now. Maybe that's true for this week. But how do I make up for that next week? Well, maybe it's being a little bit more engaging, right? Times change. Maybe I can't get face to face with them, but maybe instead of an email, I can shoot them a text, or maybe it is an email. Maybe it's this, we get on a group call, but just being engaged with them and letting them know that they're not just a number. Just like I don't want to be a number. I don't want to be just some guy sitting down in Southern California who has the answers, right? A lot of the times we don't. We have to work through this together in order to come up with a solution that benefits everybody.
Oh man, that's good. I hope that people were taking notes on that one, because we know from the beginning of this conversation, Dave, that your why is to change lives.
Yes.
If you are devoted to that why every day, and you ultimately said that at the end of each day, you look back and say, did I have fun today?
Yeah.
And part of defining fun, at least if I could answer this for you, would be, did I change someone's life today?
Yeah.
And so if I'm stepping into each day trying to change lives, then it will force me into understanding the importance of these conversations with people.
Yes.
So I think that is huge. I think that's a huge practical takeaway for everybody that's sort of listening in. Let me circle back, because we started talking about performance of people. Let's
Yes.
talk about maybe even goal setting
Yes.
and managing a team towards a set of goals. How do you do that from a distance?
Yeah. If I can backtrack for a second, we all are in this mode right now where we think work from home or work from afar is new, and really it's not. What's new is who's doing it. So there's always been managers, senior executives, owners who work from afar, right? Maybe you are a franchise owner and you have 10 franchises, and you only have so much time to go to each one of them, which means you're not at any of them all of the time, right? So we just have to take those same metrics that we used or they used for themselves and go, okay, I was motivated because I knew that I had to hit my numbers to do X, Y, and Z. I had to grow these 10 franchises. Well, we just take those same principles and say, okay, I have now they're afar, they're at home, they're having fun, they're doing whatever they want, and I'm in a location, right? And having some basic in the manufacturing industry, it's a little bit easier because we have metrics, right? This is the production capability. Here's what we know can be done per hour. Why are you or why aren't you doing that? It becomes a little bit more difficult when you're running, say, a sales team or a marketing team or things of that nature. You can look at industry standards. In my opinion, those are only as good as the people who reported them. So I try to look at, if I was doing this, if someone, the best in the world is doing this and the worst in the world is doing this, somewhere in the middle there is a good average. And if we can have them set up goals with us helping them say, hey, we need you to make X calls, we need you to make X emails, we need you to touch this many people. Most of the time it works. And throughout that time, you're going to get this curve and you're going to go, okay, I see where this line is on this graph. Here's the goals that I can help these employees set for themselves. Because if they don't have any personal engagement in it, they're not motivated.
All right. That's something that we need to highlight for everybody who's listening in, is like their own personal engagement in the process.
Yes.
And I think that if Dave is just setting some arbitrary metric, then the typical person will reject what you just told them to do because it feels like it's just a command.
Correct.
However, if we can somehow engage people in the process of setting those metrics where they feel like they're owning them themselves,
yes,
they will be bought in. Do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I have a childhood story that I was living with my grandparents at the time, and my grandmother would always say, David, go do this. And man, I never did it with passion, never did it with fun. And sometimes I didn't even do it. My grandfather would come over and he would say, let's do this. Now, I knew darn well he wasn't going to help me do it, but it was his approach to me that I said, okay, we're in this together. I might begrudgingly do it, but I did it, right? So to treat everybody fairly. We don't, employees need bosses, bosses need employees. It works both ways, right? I don't think one has any more risk than the other. So if we want employee engagement, we have to ask for their engagement, right? Hey, I don't know everything. Can you help me figure out what works best for you? We have to hit certain numbers as a business. That is very black and white. But how can I best help get you there? Do you mind helping me set up goals for you?
All right. Let's dig into this a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It feels like that process of engaging people in goal setting is fairly easy.
Yeah.
Why don't leaders do it? Why do leaders feel like they have to just set these commands themselves?
A leader probably got to their position by being a doer, right? And so they say it's like the teacher who had straight A students or straight A grades all the way through school and college, and they expect everyone to be able to do that, right? So let's take a step back and say, I did make it here. I did create this opportunity for myself, or I worked hard enough to get it. And we have to understand that maybe the why that you used to get there isn't their why. Second, you mentioned it earlier, they really are busy, right? That engaging with employees wasn't beneficial at that moment in their life. It seemed like a time waste. Over time, we know that that's not true. But today, when I'm under pressure and I have these numbers to hit, it's stressful, man. I don't want to go, I got to call 50 employees. Well, then let's delegate. And as an entrepreneur, as a leader, we do things ourselves because we don't trust. And now all of a sudden we're being asked to trust someone else to do our things. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned throughout all of this, was learning to trust that others can do it better than I can.
All right. I love that. That's easier said than done. So
absolutely.
I hear from leaders all the time, okay, great idea, Chris. I do realize I need to delegate, but I can do this best. I'm the fastest at it. I'm the most efficient. I know I'm not going to make mistakes. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Dave, how do you establish trust? I mean, like, what do you do to establish trust when delegating?
Well, first things first, and some don't have the ability to, but we also have to hire properly, right? If we have to make sure that people are working for our company for the right reasons. And I think if you hire someone that you didn't trust from the beginning, why did we hire them, right? And so the other thing that we have to do is be able to make a decision. And if we're wishy-washy with our decisions, if we say, well, and by the way, I'm guilty of this. I tennis match myself, right? Back and forth. But if you make a decision and it was the wrong decision, correct it, right? If you make the decision and it was a right decision, congratulate yourself on it. Congratulate your whole team on it. But I think we have this fear of, oh, if I make the wrong decision and this employee screws up what I could have done perfectly, you're right. And the first time you did it, you probably screwed it up too. But now look at where you are, right? And we have to let them succeed also.
Okay, so I mean, if I could sum it up, there is an element of taking a risk. Like,
Yes.
I have to make a decision, but that decision is going to involve some level of risk, right?
Yes.
So how do you as a leader
Mhm.
come to a place where you're okay with that risk? What's the process?
Yeah. I think by nature, just being an entrepreneur, are you're okay with risk, right? I'm okay failing. I know that that's a part of the process. Now, some aren't. I obviously have made decisions where I go, geez, I should have thought about that a little bit more. But you just have to step off that ledge. There's no simple way around it. There's no sugarcoating it. I can't have, and I mean this sarcastically, but I can't have my mom telling me that it was a good decision, but it was wrong, right? So basically, I just go, look, here's a decision. If I know I can right the wrong in an efficient manner, it was okay. I de-risked my risk. I mitigated what could happen. Most of the times that we delegate things, it's not a life or death situation. It's, well, the report wasn't the way that I needed it, or they didn't handle that call right, or it's not normally a life and death. And if it's not a life and death situation, who cares if there's a bump in the road?
All right, I think you've touched on something really important. I think most leaders have convinced themselves that delegating is life or death.
Right.
Like, we're going to lose a client. We're
Right.
going to lose revenue. The
Right.
whole business is going to be lost because I delegated one thing to one person. What would you say?
How are you going to grow if you don't delegate? Right. So we're already too busy, right? That's why we're stressing and we're trying to figure out how to get employees engaged or my management team engaged. Is this where I want to be? Is this the reason that I came into this business or this life? So if you are at your pinnacle and this is the highest that you ever want to achieve, first of all, congratulations. But second, then why are you trying to grow? Right. So we do only have X amount of hours in the day, and we can only grow so far by ourselves. So at some point, if you want to be a true leader, you have to teach them how to fish, right? And not give them the fish.
Wow. Okay, so the title of this show was Managing and Motivating Remotely. And if I
Yeah.
can sort of rewind this thing, I would say motivation is about asking people their why,
Yeah.
continuing to connect them back to their why. And when you see performance issues, when you see issues pop up, dig into why and see if you can get to the root of that, right?
Yes. 100%.
Then when we think about managing remotely, we're saying, okay, first of all, I'm going to have to take some level of risk. But as I process that risk, am I processing it in the right mind? Because chances are it's not going to destroy your business. You're not going to lose a client over it. If you are, you might actually be taking a little bit too much risk.
Right. Right.
How do you de-risk? I guess point number one would be make sure you're hiring the right people.
Mhm.
If you're hiring people you don't trust from the beginning, you need to look at that first.
Yes.
Secondly, if you have hired the right people, take a risk, let them try, knowing that they'll fail because you did too.
Yes.
That's an
Yes.
entrepreneur saying failure
Yeah.
is good. Okay. So now that I've allowed somebody to fail, I can pick up the pieces and we can move forward. But the only way that I will actually achieve what I'm trying to achieve is to bring some others along in the journey, take a risk, and let them fail. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes. The more people in life you help get what they want, the more likely you are to get what you want.
All right, Dave, but I'm a leader and I am supposed to be the best at my thing, be the smartest in the room, uh, be the thinker. And my job is to tell people what to do, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Right. So how would I handle that if I was doing a gig and that was the mentality that I came across with? First of all, I'd agree with them and say, you're right. And that means that your company can only go as far as you can take it. And I can
Mhm.
promise you there's a certain aspect of something that you're doing, and we'll figure it out, that someone else can do better. And once I get them to agree to that, they just delegated that position themselves. Right. And then we work on the next pain point. Okay, well, accounting isn't your specialty, but I know this great accountant, right? Or sales isn't your specialty. And I know you have a lot of, yeah, you're really busy because you're motivating these other people. So, and I try to break it down. We always look at this, we have to eat the entire pie thing. No, let's break it into segments. And somewhere between everything and nothing is the answer. We just have to help them figure out where that is.
All right. I was almost going to finish your statement, but I didn't want to interrupt because I actually think I'm going to steal this from you. But the space between everything and nothing is something.
Right.
And and that something is a place where the people around us may have skills and talents where they can add value to whatever we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. 100%.
And part of changing lives, which is your why, is to help people find that something that they can
Yeah.
be really great at, that
Yeah.
motivates them and that they want to accomplish.
And how cool is that? Right? Like, how fun is that? Right? Like, we get to put a smile on someone else's face. Like,
Hmm.
that's really awesome. We get to see them live their dreams. And hopefully they'll be able to replace me and replace the next guy or girl. Like, to me, that's the motivation right there, is training a group of people so well that they overtake anything that I've ever been able to do.
Wow. Well, Dave, I mean, I know that we're sort of new friends, but the
Yeah.
mission and the purpose of Always About People is to help create cultures where people thrive.
Yes.
And and the work that we do and the thing that I am most passionate about is seeing people thrive. Whether you call it a smile on their face, whether you call it connecting them to their why, it's all the same thing. We want to see
Yeah.
people thrive. And
Yes.
and it is apparent to me that you wake up every morning, regardless of what you're doing, with the goal to see people become all that they can be, to thrive, to
Yeah.
put a smile on their face, to be excited about performance. And I guess to circle back, I would say when we don't see that as leaders, that should be our notification, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then when we don't see that, that notification should send off alarms. There's something wrong.
Absolutely.
I
And that's
think
okay.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's okay. It's okay to have something wrong. We're not supposed to be perfect. Right? We're not.
Okay, and I've been doing a bunch of reading, obviously, over the past couple years on the effects of our environment right now on people
Uh,
and their stress levels and mental wellness and health and all the rest. And the word empathy keeps coming up because
yeah.
empathy is taking the time to understand what somebody else is going through.
Yeah.
And I think you have so carefully reminded us that we need to take the time to get into conversation, to figure out people's whys, to figure out what's really going on and to try to understand them because you can't manage and motivate anyone, even if you're in their office,
Right.
unless you understand that.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I know I can, in my own businesses, I can be a little overbearing. And one of the things that I try to do is reach out to as many employees or people as I can. And hey, how's your day? And it's weird coming from a boss. Like, what are they trying to get? And all I'm trying to get is a conversation. There's nothing else behind it, right? We're not trying to pigeonhole you into, oh, you called in sick today, but you're out on the boat, right? It's really, once you get to know people on a human level and we can empathize with things that they're going through, and most of the time they'll be able to empathize with things that you're going through as well, right? So we get away from this butting of heads. I told you to do something and you didn't do it, or I asked my boss for some help and he or she didn't give it to me. Once you know each other a little bit deeper than that, if that's possible in your work environment, it's going to be a safer place. It's going to be a happier place, and you're going to get to those people's whys and motivations a whole lot easier.
Love it. Okay, as we wrap up with a few minutes, we've got a question that I think is interesting, because we decided to talk a little bit about Coeur d'Alene wood.
Yeah.
But the question is now a little bit about your background in self-defense. Does your expertise in self-defense and martial arts help you with managing people remotely, and how?
Yeah, so absolutely. The fitness side and the self-defense side. The self-defense side, for 20 some years, we've been taught to look for existential threats, right? And so having situational awareness, trying to think what is someone else's next move when they never even made the first move. So absolutely, thinking of the problems before they arise is good news, bad news, but thinking of the problems before they arise lets you anticipate how to handle that issue. And because of that, we've been able to build extremely good systems for that exact reason. I'm really busy today. This problem's coming up. Look at my manual. Okay, here's how we handle this. We've seen this before. So that's a great question. And absolutely, it has helped in the business life.
Well, Dave, these shows go so quickly. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for the reminders. I feel like we're friends already. And you have provided some incredible insight to our listeners, to leaders around the country. And I want to give you one more chance to say anything else you want to say, anything that you want to add on to it. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Chris, thank you very much. You have a wonderful platform, and we wouldn't be able to talk to everybody if it wasn't for a guy like you. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And second, go out, live life, have fun. We'll figure out all these problems together. And if you can wake up each day and say, I get to do this versus I have to do this, it's going to be much easier.
Oh boy. I think you just set up a future episode on the power of thought and attitude and how that affects our lives. Dave, thank you so much for joining us on this show. It was great. Maybe we can do another one.
I would love to. Absolutely.
Awesome. To our watchers, viewers, listeners, just a reminder, we go live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And there are ways that you can get notifications for when these shows are coming up. We're going to continue to provide great guests. And it is the Always About People show, which means that every topic will be around people. That's pretty obvious, right? Well, we had a great show today. Dave reminded us of some key insights. If you're a leader, leading remotely, managing remotely, and motivating remotely, I hope that this show helps you. And I hope that you were able to get some practical insights from our conversation today. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.